Hey guys, Captain Mike, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. This video, I don't really know exactly how it's going to go. This is Hurricane Helene. It's almost 11 o'clock. We've got about 3 hours before Hurricane Helene is kind of parallel to the Tampa Bay. Luckily, we've been spared. We're not going to get that direct hit, though we're concerned about the storm surge that comes in later today. We have a little respite here, a little bit of time. I'm just going to drink some whiskey as we get ready for this. This video is going to be a little different simply because it's just going to be really quick. I'm going to go through 4 different bottles and going to try and do minimal amount of editing and just film the video and get it back up on YouTube as quickly as I can before we lose power again. We had lost power last night about 2 hours. Woke up this morning to we're out of power for at least 2 hours. We've got the house pretty much as prepped as we can. We're expecting quite a bit storm surge later today, but we've got the house prepped between Flex Seal and DAP Seal and Peel and some wood barriers. We've got the house protected up to about 2.5, 3 feet above where the door line is, pretty much to where the bottom of the windows are in our house. That's really all that we can do as far as I'm concerned. And we had a hotel booked, decided to not evacuate, so we're just gonna tough it out here in the house. Got the house, everything throughout the house, all the extension cords and everything are pretty much up. And you know, we really feel bad if those guys up in the Big Bend area, they are gonna get walloped. And I hope you just left. You just like, this is not the thing to do. The Tallahassee area, they haven't been really hit with a direct storm in quite a long time, and they are gonna get the tar kicked out of them today. So guys, I hope if you're from that area, you've already evacuated and you're somewhere safe in a hotel or at a friend or a loved one's house. And if you're sticking it out, man, you're somewhere prepared and ready, because Helene is coming and that area is gonna get effed big time, I think. But that's the price we pay, at least here, for you know, this beach life, I guess. Okay, and also this video, you know, the rug is and stuff is out of the room. Just get everything off the floor. And so if it's a little echoey or whatever, it is what it is today. Let's blast through this. Recently, I had a friend come out, Scott. He had a trade conference in Orlando, so I drove to Orlando, picked him up. We drove to St. Augustine, did the self-guided tour at St. Augustine, then drove all the way down to Tampa, spent the night in Ybor City, and then we went to 3 distilleries in the Tampa, St. Pete area the next day, and it was really cool. I chose all these distilleries because they do distill their own whiskey. They are not sourcing the whiskey like some of the other distilleries around here do, and so there's no point in going to a distillery that just sources all of their whiskey. So let's just go through. I bought a bottle at each location. I'm just going to talk briefly about the tours that we did, because we did do a tour at each one of the locations and what I thought about them. And then let's drink a little bit of the whiskey and see what we think. So 3 of the bottles aren't even opened yet. We're going to open them right here. The St. Augustine has been, so we're going to start with these guys, St. Augustine. We're going to do these in the order that we visited the distilleries. I really wanted to go to St. Augustine, and it's like 2 hours from Orlando, and I was just too late in booking the tour. So I called the lady and she said, yeah, come on up and you can do a self-guided tour. And I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. Can we book a tasting? And she's like, or she said, why don't you book a tasting? And I said, because they're all full. There are no tastings available. Super weird. Like all the days before and all the days after, they had spots available. But that day that we went, everything was booked up for some reason. I don't know what was going on. As far as St. Augustine Distillery, I think it would be great to go there sometime when they have the tour operating. I'm gonna have to go back and do an actual tour there. The self-guided tour is kind of a joke. You walk in there and, well, before you walk into the self-guided tour, he makes you like a little tasting, just in a little plastic cup, and it was really nice. You walk into the self-guided tour, a little roped off area. You go in one door and there's 5 little signs. You read those signs, you can see like the barrels, and you can see some people working in the background, and that's it. Like, that was a self-guided tour. We walked in there and I thought, oh, here's the doors. We're going to go through the door and go see something more in a self-guided tour. No, that was that one right there, 5 signs you read, and then you're done. But that was fine. I had another little tasting right there. Then we went up to the store and did some more just tastings up there, which I think all were free except the Saint. So we did just have some pours of whiskey up there. Everything was really good. As far as St. Augustine Distillery, they do distill their own whiskey. They age it right there, and the Saint is kind of like their highest end product. It runs about $150, $180 depending on where you buy it from and stuff like that. So this is just their St. Augustine, Florida straight bourbon. It's 88 proof. It is straight bourbon whiskey. It is age stated because it's only 3 years old. Don't know anything about it other than just what it says here on the bottle. 88 proof, 3 years old, Florida bourbon. I've had this bottle actually for a little while. I didn't buy this on the tour or since we went there. I've had a couple pours. In fact, I think my friend Kevin gifted this bottle to me. We're going to blast through this. So all the bottles we're doing today, because of Helene, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do just a Florida bottles and distillery because it's a Florida day. At least for us, the rest of the United States is just going about their day, and we're about to get walloped. Walloped. I'm not really a huge fan of this bourbon. It's got a little edge to it that's kind of turning me off on the nose. It almost has a it just smells very young, kind of unrefined bourbon. I'm trying to think of what that note is exactly that I'm picking up on there. It's a sweetness, but it's almost turned a little bit for me. It's hard to describe. It's bordering on kind of a nail polishy type chemical type smell. It's definitely a bourbon notes in there. You know, you have that sweetness, and there's some caramel in there, so there's some richness, but there's a little turn to it. And it doesn't really smell like nail polish, but there's just a hint of that kind of a chemical in there. I don't know. Cheers, my guys. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. I feel like it's a little bit of a harsh bourbon, and that's just the best word I can come up with it, in that it has all the things you're looking for in a bourbon, but there is a harshness to it. It's just underlying everything from the nose to the palate on this. It's just... there's a reason that I've had this for a year and a half, and I've hardly made, you know, we're a little ways into it. I don't actually prefer this St. Augustine straight bourbon. I have had some of their other pours at the distillery, some of their finished stuff, and I think they're pretty good. They have the toasted there. I thought was really good, but just their regular 3-year-old straight bourbon whiskey, I am just not really a fan of it. Again, there's that harshness to it, and that's just the best word I can think of it. So I definitely have had some products of theirs that I do like. The distillery, I think I should like to do the full tour as opposed to just doing the self-guided tour and see how that goes. I've heard good things about them, and all their products are pretty young. Even the Saint, I think, is only 4 years old. So, you know, that's a tough pill to swallow for like 150 bucks. Okay, this interesting one here is Kozuba. And we went to these guys next because they were opened earlier at 10 a.m. This is a Polish company. They were in Poland distilling whiskeys and spirits, and they brought all of their equipment over to the United States, and then they moved it last year to, I think it's Pinellas Park, here in St. Pete. They have not turned any of their stuff on. So we did a little tour there. We walked in, we didn't have a tour booked, and we pulled into the parking lot, really small. We were kind of laughing because they don't have any signs or anything, just a couple whiskey barrels outside. We walked inside, and there was a kid in there, and I can't remember his name. And it was really, really nice. We did a small tasting right there. They had some bottles lined up, and then we went back into the production area and did just like a little mini tour. And I've done numerous distillery tours in really small distilleries, so that was not unusual. Nothing was operating or working, but it was interesting to see. And because they haven't turned anything on, they're just going through their old stock, and they're down to like 20 barrels total of whiskey is what they have. And I have seen her stuff on the shelves here locally. I don't assume you can find this anywhere else besides in the Florida area. And okay, so let's go through the bottle the tour was free, of course, and you know, they're just hoping you'll be interested in what they have to say and then buy a bottle from them. And then we saw a couple of other people walk in and just buy bottles and walk out while we were there. So Kozuba, I bought this because if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I'm kind of a rye guy, and this is small batch, whatever, straight rye whiskey, double oaked. So that sounds like something that's right up my alley. A double oaked straight rye, sign me up. Okay, distilled from rye malt only, limited release straight rye whiskey, aged for, okay, this is actually pretty cool, aged for 3 years in American oak barrels, and then finished for 2 years in brandy European oak casks. So aged 3, finished 2, 100% malted rye. Man, that sounds like something that I would like. And it's bottled at 110 proof. And you know what, I'm so unprepared for this video. I spent the last 2.5 days just prepping for the storm. And I didn't prep for this video at all. I don't have the prices of these bottles, and I don't even want to say it. I bet it was like 70 bucks. I don't think there's anything more about this as far as the specs and stats goes. You know, produced and bottled by Kozuba Sons. I always get kind of weirded out when they say produced and bottled. Why don't they just say distilled? Anyway, that sounds like right up my alley though. Kozuba double rye, 100% malted. Oh, I like. Oh man, it's that rye and that spice coming across, but it's also sweet. Nice roundness, it smells rich, it looks nice. Again, 3 years old, age stated, finished 2 years. Good looking whiskey. We were in the back into the front room at the end. The owner's son had come by, and I wish I had known who he was, and we could have talked some more. But we chatted just a little bit, and then he didn't really introduce himself or anything. Just chatted for a second, and then rolled on. And afterwards, I realized he was the owner's son. I would have liked to chat a little bit more, but Kozuba and Sons, just really nice. Man, I love these high rye ryes. I don't have very many double oaked ryes. Or toasted ryes is probably more common than double oaked. And I always thought that kind of toasted and double oak were pretty similar, and they are very similar, but there are some distinctions. Like I just bought the Kentucky Peerless toasted bourbon, but I also have the double oak bourbon, and they have quite a few distinct differences between those two whiskeys. Anyway, cheers. Kozuba, 100% malted rye, double oaked. Wow, that proof is right there. Oh man, it is so nice. There is a nice, just that minty, pepperminty coming through. Nice spice, less sweetness on the palate than on the nose. Okay, at first blush, man, I really enjoyed that first sip there. And I have 2 more whiskeys, so I'm not trying not to get too effed up here before, because I still have a lot of hurricane stuff to do today and have to be prepped and ready to go. I kind of expect perhaps some water to be seeping in. I don't, man, I'm hoping there's no water gets inside the house. We've sacrificed our garage, everything's up a couple of feet. But here in the house, man, we have towel stations, wet dry vacs, buckets, and totes to catch the water and stuff by our 3 doors. We're just gonna be up till probably 1 a.m. tonight, just there with towels, fans. Hopefully we don't lose power, but anyway, okay. So I'm just not trying to get too drunk. So I'm not drinking all of this. I just wanted to taste it. And man, I am, at first blush, super big fan of this whiskey. I'm so glad I bought this. I thought about just buying the bourbon from each place to just do like more of a direct comparison. That's not really what I'm doing. I'm just, here's what I thought about going to these distilleries, and here's what I think about one of their whiskeys. This is right up my alley. Definitely, man, nice spice. Just a nice zing of that heat from the 110 proof. Just on the front palate there. Just a nice bit of sweetness from that second, that double oak. You know, I didn't see, and this was chill filtered. He talked about chill filtering when we were there, and I have the feeling that they do chill filter their whiskeys. And if you know whether they do or not, and feel free to comment if you know for sure. But it just leaves me with a nice amount of spice. It's not super viscous, but this is, to me, is far superior to what I just had from the St. Augustine. That I am going to enjoy that. I'm really happy that they are very close to me. I think that we always go to Kentucky. I just went to Kentucky a couple weeks ago, and man, I love going to Kentucky. I love going to Utah and doing the high west stuff. But I also like to do local, right? Like support these guys, especially these guys that are distilling the whiskey and the spirits here locally. Like, yeah, I'm not really like a shop local guy, but definitely support these guys. Now, there's no bar or anything there at Kozuba. Then we drove down from Kozuba down to Loaded Cannon. Now, Loaded Cannon is down by Sarasota, so it's probably like an hour south of us. Stopped at a couple liquor stores on the way there. Didn't buy anything. I was pretty excited about going to Loaded Cannon. So what I got there was let's talk about the tour first. So we walk in there, and we didn't have tours booked at any of these places. Walked into Loaded Cannon. This was on a Thursday, and it's kind of an industrial kind of park. And as we're walking in, the door says Wednesdays and Thursdays, tours by appointment only. I'm like, dang it. But they have a nice bar in there. The waitress or the bartender there was very nice. They had a bunch of tables set up with some games. So a nice place you could hang out. Didn't really have any food, just like some popcorn and that sort of stuff. And we're like, hey, we don't have a tour booked. Can we get a tour? And we're there at probably 12:30. I think they open at noon. And she's like, well, they're doing a lot of stuff today. Let me go see. So she goes back, and she comes back, and she's like, yeah, they're going to clean up a couple things, and then they'll come and they'll give you a tour. And we're like, okay, great. So we're kind of looking at their whiskeys, and then this guy comes out, and he introduces himself, and I guess I wasn't really paying attention. And then we started doing the tour, and he's asking us trivia questions, and we had a great time. And he was very, very knowledgeable. Like, I'm talking like super knowledgeable about like the chemistry and the oak and the barrels and everything and the process. And it turns out he's the owner, the founder, the big guy there. And yeah, it was really, really interesting. He was a super nice guy, and we had a great time. So I really recommend, if you're in the area and you want to go visit some local Florida distilleries, Loaded Cannon was really nice. It was a decent tour, and there was stuff everywhere. They certainly weren't prepared for us. We were walking around all kinds of stuff, and they were operating. I think they were bottling and labeling while we were there. So it was cool, and it was a great tour. So I went ahead and picked up their Carlotta's Revenge bourbon. A lot of stuff in Florida is, you know, pirates themed and stuff like that. So Loaded Cannon. And it is a straight bourbon whiskey, copper kissed in charred oak barrels from Lakewood Ranch. This is 4 years old, bottled at 95 proof. It doesn't mention if it is chill filtered or not. All right, not really much more to it than that. They did have a rye there, but the ryes were younger, and they had some old MGP stuff from when they had first opened. And you know, I drink a lot of MGP whiskey, so that's no big deal to me. But I wasn't there for MGP. I wanted to see what they had. So as far as I'm concerned, I think if you go to Loaded Cannon, if you're in that area, go give them a try. Book a tour, talk to the owner, and drink some whiskey there and have a good time. So they did us a flight as well, and you could pick and mix and match what you wanted to drink, and that was really nice. I felt bad. I told him, like, this is one of the first times that I have done a tour and a tasting and not finished the tasting. And she seemed to think that I was indicating that's because I didn't like the whiskey. And I said, no, it's like 1 p.m. and I haven't eaten today. And so I'm already getting just a little bit of a buzz from your tasting. And so I'm not finishing the whiskeys because I'm getting buzzed already, not because I didn't like it. So anyway, Loaded Cannon, and again, no real prep for this video, so I can't tell you what I paid for this bottle. If I look it up, I'll post it on the screen here. But not really planning on doing a lot of editing for this video either. We'll see. We'll see what we get to. All right. This is, yep, bourbon. Don't have the mash bill or anything. Nice. That's a nice smelling bourbon. It's a little more aged than the St. Augustine at 3 years. It's a little higher proof. Just nice, it's a nice brown sugar note to it. Some vanilla. No real heat from the alcohol. I really enjoyed the tour. I think of the 4 distilleries we went to, Loaded Cannon was a nice setup. It's worth your time to go there. Probably a smaller operation than St. Augustine, but you know, we didn't do the full tour there, so I don't have a direct comparison between the 2 distilleries. In my mind, though, I think St. Augustine is probably larger. Oh, wow, quite a bit of vanilla, a lot of caramel, no real oakiness. It's not super viscous. It's really nice though. It doesn't have that harshness that I was getting from the St. Augustine. It's just a nice round bourbon. I think the 95 proof is really nice. Man, I wish I could remember the price tag on this. But I think overall that was it's a nice pour, especially coming from that high rye down back into a bourbon. It's just, I don't even have any water to reset myself or anything. Totally unprepared for this video. It is what it is today. It is nice. I think this is a pretty good bourbon. It doesn't have, it's not very thick. It's not very viscous. It's not chewy. It's not leaving me with a long finish. It's just a nice quick sip that I'm not even going to finish here, as I'm already just feeling what I'm drinking already. But I think these guys, they have a lot of different spirits there as well. A lot of different things. So I think you can find what you like. Like all these distilleries also do gins and stuff like that, you know, as these smaller distilleries typically do. They do vodkas, they do gins, because that's how they supplement while their whiskey is aging. So you can typically, even if your spouse or significant other is not a whiskey person, you can go and find some gins and all the botanicals and the yumminess there. I think, why not? Okay, on to the last one. And we drove from Lakewood Ranch up to Tarpon Springs. And if you're familiar with the area, you'll know that our path was kind of weird, but it was dictated by when the distilleries were open. So if we had gone to Loaded Cannon first and then Kozuba and then Tarpon Springs, which would make more sense as far as distance driven, it wouldn't have worked because Kozuba closes like at 2 or 3 o'clock. Now we're up to Tarpon Springs, and this was quite a bit later. And we pulled into these guys' parking lot, and we were like, do we actually want to go inside? Like, it was really, really small. And Scott booked a tour on the way up there. And I was like, you know, we've driven all the way up here. Let's just go inside and see what they have. Like, that's how small it was. There's nobody there. And we were like, let's just go inside and see what they have to offer. And I'm glad we did. We walked into this pretty small store bar area. They're like, are you here for the tour? And we're like, yes. And so they sat us down immediately and they started talking. So the guy was talking to us about how whiskey is made and the process. And he's like, we're going to go in the back there, but it's hot as balls back there. So let's talk up here for a while. And then we'll go back there and we'll show you the equipment that we have. And we're like, that's super cool. So we went through kind of the process and how they came to be. Then we went back and did a little tour. And it was, when I say little tour, it was a little tour. I mean, it was a much smaller area, say, than Kozuba. Not that the equipment at Kozuba was much larger than the equipment that they had at Tarpon Springs, but the area was much larger. So nothing was operating. We just kind of walked around, looked at their still and their equipment and everything, and then went back in and we had the tasting. And they had a crap ton of different gins and vodkas and whiskeys, and that we did a tasting. I mean, it got to the point where we were just like, no, next, pass, because there were so many there that we were trying. So as far as the distillery tour there at Tarpon Springs, is that worth driving out of your way for? I think it was cool to do, right? It was cool to go to St. Augustine, Kozuba, Loaded Cannon, Tarpon Springs, and see the different distillery tours, and they do their own thing there. I definitely wouldn't drive up there specifically for that again, unless you're going to the area to do the sponge stocks or something else. And while we were doing our tasting after the tour, there were local people coming in and, you know, sitting, belling up to the bar and getting pours and doing drinks and cocktails. It seemed like it was kind of a local hangout as well. And a couple of people came in and did like other tastings and bought some bottles and left. So I settled on this bottle. This is called their pot distilled recipe Grambling Woods Series Rye Malt Whiskey. It's bottled at 107 proof. It won double gold at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Batch 6. Okay, here we go, guys. Now, for those of you who are sharp, you notice that I didn't say this was a straight whiskey. So the other 3 are straight. This one is not straight. Why? Because it's only 1 year old. This is an American whiskey and not a straight whiskey because of the age. So 1 year old, let's see, consisting of malted rye, pecan smoked malted barley, and malted corn. That's interesting, right? So they run it through a pot still, they age it in oak barrels, in a church, bottle at 107 proof, bottled and distilled by Tarpon Springs Distillery. So this is a very young whiskey at 1 year old. I bought it because it's a rye and I like ryes. So, but it's not straight, and I get that that matters a lot to you guys, to some of you guys, and it matters to me too. But I went into this knowing that it's not straight. Like, they are very clear that it's 1 year old, and that's why it's not straight. I mean, think about like Michter's American whiskey. They're clear that it's aged in used barrels, which is why it's not straight. And that's fine. I think with that kind of transparency, you can go and you can buy a bottle of whiskey knowing the facts about it. Anyway, Grambling Woods rye whiskey. Now, unlike the other rye from Kozuba, this is not 100% rye. It does have some malted barley and malted corn. I'm not sure I've ever had a whiskey with malted corn. I can't even think of anyone that has that. Wow. What a different note. So this is the malted rye. Huh. I remember now why I bought this, because it does smell delicious. We did taste this one at the tasting, and it smelled just a rich brown sugar, overwhelming note on the nose. Just very rich. I really like the nose. It's not typically what I think of with a rye, and we don't know the mash bill. It has the corn, the malted corn, and the malted barley as well. And actually it was said it was pecan smoked, right? Pecan smoked? Pecan smoked malted barley. Okay, let's go back in again. Man, this really is a nice smelling whiskey. It is a bit of nuttiness in there. There's some honey. There's a honey sweetness, but it has that brown sugar, and actually it's mapley as well. It's got all these things in it. That is definitely a maple syrup note to it. There's that sweetness. It's almost like a candy corn note. Man, okay. There's stuff in that whiskey that I've never ever smelled before. All right, cheers. Wow. Okay, it's definitely, again, there is some heat to it. There's a maple syrup note. There's a brown sugar note. There's that honey note. It's got just a little bit of nuttiness to it. That smoking of the malted barley has had a major effect on this whiskey. As well, that malted corn, I guess, I don't know what that's doing. There is again, that candy corn kind of note on there as well. It's almost like, actually, it just does a little bit of a taffy note as well. This is so different than if you're drinking a typical rye. It's that same, just that maple syrup, honey, brown sugar, some candy corn. It's almost like a tobacco note there. Okay, so I'm a fan. I'm a fan, man. I'm a fan of these whiskeys. The St. Augustine Straight Bourbon, that's definitely my least favorite of this bunch. I mean, taste-wise, definitely these ryes. I mean, this Grambling, I was not expecting much with this 1-year-old whiskey. I know I had a taste of it at the distillery, but we probably drank 12 whiskeys at the distillery. I'm not kidding. I've never had a tasting with that many different whiskeys. It kept coming and coming. And I mean, you're talking such a small pour. I mean, I can't remember all the whiskeys that we had. This Loaded Cannon, I think, is a pretty good bourbon. I would be happy to drink that again. I do like the Kozuba there. It has a nice flavor, a nice turn to it. I'm a fan. I'm super happy that they are very close to me, and I'm going to keep a bottle of that at my house here all the time. Now, this whiskey is very interesting. Again, it's not labeled straight. You know, so could they be flavoring it? They don't say they do. I mean, they have malted corn, malted barley that's pecan smoked, and malted rye. Actually, is the rye malted? Malted rye. So everything's malted in here. And man, I'm sold on the Grambling Woods rye malt whiskey. And I'm gonna go pick up some more of that. These two, the two ryes, I'm definitely keeping at my house because I'm a fan. And I think this would be a good one to give to someone who perhaps they don't like ryes, or they say they don't like ryes. This would definitely be, it's just an explosion of flavor. This one, if you're like just a nice rye drinker, I think is really, really good. But for someone who perhaps doesn't like an overwhelming rye, boom, there you go. All right, guys, as far as drinking and sourcing whiskey locally, I think it's a good thing. I'm glad Scott came to town and that we had this opportunity to go and visit the local distilleries. And I think that if you have the opportunity, wherever you are, just Google and look at what distilleries are around where you're at. Do they make their own whiskey there? And go support those local guys. And, you know, keep drinking what you drink, but, you know, give those guys a try at the very least, and go visit them and see what's going on and talk to them. I think it's worth your time. Guys, that's it. If you've, you know, wherever you're at, if you've done local distillery tours, let us know. I mean, we've done little small ones in Iceland, we've done them in Pittsburgh and Traverse City, and just different places. I think it's great to do. But let us know if you have a favorite, like not big brand local distillery. Let us know. I'd be interested to know what places you've been to. And we travel quite a bit, and when we do, I like to go see local distilleries. So I'd be interested in where your favorites are. Again, those in the path of Hurricane Helene, I hope you and your loved ones are safe. I really hope the best for you and all of us who are facing it this time right now. But for now, my friends, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, like it, subscribe to see more of my content. I did both whiskey and book reviews. But for now, my friends, stay safe. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn those pages and stay thirsty. Cheers.